He wasn't supposed to know my name. For 9 months, I've been invisible in Vincent Castellano's Boston mansion. Just another set of hands polishing marble, folding $1,000 sheets, arranging orchids that cost more than my rent. But when he found me bleeding in his study at 2 a.m., unconscious on carpet I'd vacuumed that morning, something in those steel-gray eyes told me everything was about to change. What I didn't know yet was that the men who'd beaten me unconscious 3 hours earlier had made a fatal mistake. And Vincent Castellano never let mistakes go unpunished. Ever point 9 months ago, I'd taken this job because $38,000 in medical debt doesn't disappear on hope alone. My mother's cancer had eaten through our savings before it killed her 18 months prior, leaving me with bills that would follow me into my 30s. Payment plans with interest rates that should be criminal. Collection calls that came at dinner time. The weight of owing money to save a life that couldn't be saved? I cleaned Vincent's 3-story Beacon Hill mansion. Dusted chandeliers I could never afford. Polished surfaces that gleamed under lights that cost more than my car. Arranged flowers that were replaced weekly whether they'd wilted or not. I moved through rooms like air, present but unnoticed. That's what you learn when you work in a house like this. How to be invisible. The mansion sprawled across prime real estate, overlooking Boston Common. All dark wood and marble and windows that framed the city like postcards. Vincent Castellano himself was a shadow I'd learned to predict. I'd hear his footsteps on the stairs, measured, deliberate, and know to be elsewhere. I'd catch glimpses through doorways. Dark hair always perfectly styled. Expensive suits that fit like they were born on him. Eyes the color of storm clouds that never quite landed on me.
Before we continue, please comment below where you are watching from, and don't forget to subscribe.
He held meetings in his study with men who spoke in low voices and left through side doors. I'd clean up after them. Empty ashtrays that smelled of Cuban cigars. Collect forgotten glasses still wet with scotch. I didn't ask questions. That wasn't my job. My job was to disappear. The only constant in this carefully ordered existence was Emma. My sister worked in the kitchen. 24 years old, with our mother's easy laugh and none of my caution. She made breakfasts that smelled like comfort and dinners that looked like art. Every evening, when our shifts ended, we'd ride the Red Line back to our cramped apartment in Dorchester together. 2 bedrooms, thin walls, neighbors who fought at 3 a.m. But it was ours. Well, rented, barely afforded. I worked the extra shifts when they were offered because I needed every dollar. Because $38,000 in medical debt doesn't disappear on its own. Because my mother died 2 years ago from cancer that consumed her body and our savings simultaneously. The bills kept coming long after her funeral. I'd signed payment plans I'd be honoring into my 30s. Accepted interest rates that made my stomach turn. Learned to survive on cheap coffee and cheaper hope. So I cleaned. I folded. I polished. I accepted overtime without complaint. Tuesday night, the grandfather clock in the main hall chimed 11 times as I finished wiping down the banister. My shoulders ached from scrubbing tile grout in the 3rd floor bathroom. My lower back protested when I bent to collect my cleaning caddy. October in Boston meant darkness fell early, and through the tall windows, I watched rain begin to streak the glass. "You heading out?" Emma appeared from the kitchen, pulling on her jacket. She smelled like rosemary and garlic from whatever she'd prepared for Vincent's dinner. "Yeah, long day." She studied my face with that particular intensity only siblings can manage. "You look exhausted." "I'm fine. You always say that." She linked her arm through mine as we walked toward the service entrance. "Movie night this weekend? I'll make popcorn. If I'm not working." "Lauren," she caught herself. "Sophie, you can't keep doing doubles forever." "I can. I have to." The next payment was due in 2 weeks, and I was short by $250. Outside, the rain had graduated from drizzle to downpour. We huddled under the small awning by the service door. Emma pulled out her phone to check the subway status. Train's running on time, ready to make a run for it. 4 blocks. That's all it was. 4 blocks from the Castellano mansion to the Charles/MGH Red Line station. We'd walked it hundreds of times, usually together, sometimes alone when our shifts didn't align. The neighborhood was supposed to be safe. This was Vincent's territory, after all. I'd heard the whispers about what that meant. Protection, order, rules enforced by men in dark suits who appeared when needed and disappeared just as quickly. Emma's phone buzzed. A text from her boyfriend. Some emergency with his roommate that had her swearing under her breath and apologizing profusely. Go, I told her. I'll be fine. You sure? It's 4 blocks. I've walked it 100 times. She kissed my cheek and ran toward the parking garage where she kept her ancient Honda. I watched her taillights disappear around the corner, then pulled my hood up against the rain and started walking. The street was quieter than usual. Most storefronts had already closed, their windows dark except for security lights that cast everything in shades of amber and shadow. My sneakers splashed through puddles, soaking through to my socks within half a block. I kept my head down, focused on the familiar route. Counting the shops, I passed like prayer beads. The Italian restaurant, the dry cleaner, the pharmacy with a flickering neon sign. 2 blocks down, 2 to go. The alley appeared on my left, narrow and dark between 2 buildings. I'd passed it 1,000 times without thought. But tonight, 2 figures stepped out from the shadows, blocking the sidewalk ahead. I stopped, heart suddenly hammering against my ribs. Evening, one of them said. White guy, maybe 30, with a Boston accent thick as fog. His companion was taller, broader, silent. Evening, I managed, moving to step around them. The first man shifted, staying in my path. Where you headed in such a hurry? Home. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Excuse me. Hold on now. He smiled, but it wasn't friendly. Just being neighborly. Making conversation. The taller one moved behind me, cutting off retreat. My stomach dropped. I don't want trouble, I said. No trouble. The first man held up his hands, palms out. Just need your bag and that phone in your pocket. Nice and easy. My mind raced through options. Scream, but who would hear over the rain? Run, but where? Fight against 2 men twice my size? I pulled my crossbody bag over my head with shaking hands and held it out. He took it, rifled through quickly, pocketed my wallet. Then he looked at me expectantly. Phone. I reached into my jacket with numb fingers and handed over my cell. My lifeline. My alarm clock. My connection to Emma. Good girl. He examined the phone. Then his eyes landed on my shirt. My cleaning uniform visible where my jacket hung open. Simple gray polo with the mansion's discreet logo embroidered on the chest. Wait a second. He stepped closer, rain plastering his hair to his skull. You work at that house. The big one on the corner. Fear spiked cold through my veins. No, don't lie. He grabbed my collar, yanking me forward. I've seen that logo before. You work for the Italian, don't you? I don't know what you're talking about. He looked at his companion. She works for Castellano. The taller man's expression changed. Something dark crossed his features. I'm just a cleaner, I said desperately. I don't know anything. I just clean houses. Please, just a cleaner. The first man laughed, but it was ugly. Well, just a cleaner. They're going to deliver a message for us. The first punch came from nowhere, catching me across the cheekbone. Pain exploded white-hot behind my eyes. I staggered backward. Before I could recover, hands grabbed my arms, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. I tried to scream, but a palm clamped over my mouth. This is what happens, the first man said close to my ear, when people think they own our streets. When they think their Italian boss can tell us what to do. The second hit caught my ribs. Then another, and another. I stopped counting after the 4th. Stopped trying to fight. Just curled inward and prayed for it to end. Someone grabbed my hair. Yanked my head back. I saw the first man's fist coming toward my face before everything went black. I don't know how long I was unconscious. Could have been seconds. Could have been minutes. When awareness returned, I was lying on wet pavement, rain drumming against my back. Every breath felt like knives in my side. My left eye wouldn't open properly, swollen and throbbing. The metallic taste of blood filled my mouth. They were gone. My bag, my phone, my attackers, all vanished into the October night. I pushed myself to sitting, biting back a sob as my ribs protested. My hands were scraped raw, my jeans torn at the knee. Through my one working eye, I could see the subway station ahead, its lights wavering through the rain. Get up. Move. Get help. I don't remember the walk clearly. Just fragments. Stumbling. A security guard asking if I needed help. Me shaking my head. The jarring motion sending fresh waves of pain through my skull. Somehow getting on a train. The fluorescent lights, too bright. Too harsh. But I didn't go home. Couldn't. Because something in my foggy brain understood that those men had recognized my uniform. Had mentioned Vincent's name. This wasn't random. I got off at Charles/MGH. Walked the 4 blocks back to the mansion. Each step agony. Each breath a reminder of fractured bones and damaged tissue. The service entrance was locked. Of course it was. After midnight, I pounded on the door with numb fists until Marco appeared. Vincent's second in command, all silver-threaded hair and sharp eyes. He took one look at me and went pale. Jesus Christ. Sophie. My voice cracked. I need to see Mr. Castellano. He's in his study. Come on. He put an arm around me, careful not to touch anywhere that looked damaged, and guided me inside. The mansion was quiet. Most staff had gone home hours ago. Our footsteps echoed on marble floors I'd cleaned that morning. Marco led me through corridors I knew by heart, but everything looked different through one eye in a haze of pain. Vincent's study door stood open. Light spilled out into the darkened hallway. Marco knocked once, then entered without waiting for permission. Vincent looked up from his desk. He'd removed his jacket, rolled his sleeves to his elbows. Dark hair, slightly disheveled, like he'd been running his hands through it. His eyes landed on me. Something happened to his face. Something terrible and controlled. The kind of rage that doesn't explode, it calculates. What happened? His voice was low, deadly quiet. Found her at the service in trance, Marco said. She's hurt bad. Vincent was around his desk in 2 strides. He approached me slowly, like a might bolt. Sophie, who did this to you? The use of my name, my actual name, not just staff or the cleaner, shocked me in his stillness. I don't know them. 2 men, between Beacon and Charles. When? Around 11, maybe 11:30. I don't know. I lost time. His jaw tightened incrementally. Sit down. He guided me to the leather couch. The same one I'd cleaned hundreds of times. Now I was bleeding on it, probably ruining expensive leather. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'll clean. Don't. The word came out sharp. He softened it. Don't apologize. Marco, get Dr. Russo. Now. Marco left without question. Vincent crouched in front of me, bringing himself eye level. I need you to tell me exactly what happened. Can you do that? I told him. The walk. The alley. How they'd taken my bag and phone. How the first man had seen my uniform. Vincent's expression went very still. He recognized the logo. Yes. Asked if I worked for you. I said no, but he didn't believe me. My voice broke. He said it was a message. That you think you own these streets. Something dark crossed Vincent's face. Did he say anything else? Any names? Donnelly. I think. He mentioned someone named Donnelly. Vincent stood. Made a call. Spoke in rapid Italian to whoever answered. When he switched to English, his voice could have cut glass. Marco, when you get back with the doctor, bring everyone. Full team. I want every camera feed from Beacon to Charles pulled. I want those men identified within the hour. And I want Patrick Donnelly to know I'm coming for him. He ended the call. Looked at me. Really looked at me. Not through me, not past me, but at me. Seeing me fully for what felt like the first time. You've worked here 9 months, he said quietly. I've noticed things about you, Sophie. How you organize my books by author without being asked. How you fold the newspapers so the headlines face up. How you water the orchids every Tuesday because they need consistent care. He paused. How you never complain. Never ask for anything. Just show up and do your job with quiet competence. My throat tightened. You noticed? I notice everything in my world. And you're part of it whether you realize it or not. His gray eyes held mine. Those men made a mistake. They put their hands on someone under my protection. That can't go unanswered. I'm just a maid. You work in my home. You walk my streets. That makes you mine to protect. He said like a vow. This is personal now. Dr. Russo arrived within 20 minutes. He was maybe 60, with silver hair and hands that moved with surgical precision. He examined me with clinical detachment while Vincent watched from his desk like a sentinel. Fractured rib. Left sixth, probably. Severe contusions across the face and torso. Possible concussion. He wrapped my ribs in compression bandages, prescribed painkillers I knew I couldn't afford, and anti-inflammatories that would probably cost half my rent. She needs rest, he told Vincent. Real rest. Not working through it. She'll rest. Vincent's tone allowed no argument. When Dr. Russo left, Vincent made another call. This time to Emma. It's Vincent Castellano, he said when she answered. Your sister's here. She's hurt. No, don't panic. She's safe. But I need you to come back. Bring clothes for both of you. You're staying here tonight. He hung up before she could argue. I can go home. I started. No. Final. Absolute. Those men know you work for me. They know what you look like. Until I've handled this situation, you're under my roof and my protection. Handled it how? His expression was answer enough. Emma arrived 40 minutes later, breathless and terrified. She took one look at my face and burst into tears. Oh my God. Sophie, who did this? Vincent gestured to the couch beside me. Seat. I'll explain. He did. Efficiently. Clinically. 2 men attacked your sister in my territory because she works for me. They mentioned Patrick Donnelly by name. This was a deliberate provocation. Emma's face went pale. The Irish. Apparently they're testing boundaries. Using my staff as targets. Vincent's voice went cold. It was a miscalculation. What are you going to do? What needs to be done? At 3 a.m., I woke to voices drifting up from downstairs. I've been installed in a guest room that was bigger than my bedroom at home. Cream walls. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Furniture that belonged in museums. Emma slept in the room next door. But I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the alley. Felt hands grabbing me. Heard that ugly laugh. The voices were coming from Vincent's study. I should have stayed in bed. Should have pulled the covers over my head and pretended I heard nothing. Instead, I found myself padding barefoot across plush carpet, easing into the hallway. Following sounds downstairs I'd cleaned 1,000 times. Vincent's study door stood ajar. Light spilled out. Voices carried, low, controlled, dangerous. I approached like approaching a wild animal. Slow, cautious, barely breathing. Through the gap, I could see them. 2 men knelt in the center of the room, hands zip-tied behind their backs. I recognized them immediately despite the blood on their faces. The shaved head, the broader build of his companion. The men who'd attacked me. Marco stood to one side, arms crossed. 2 other men I didn't recognize flanked the doorway, guns visible at their waists. And Vincent sat in his leather chair, perfectly still, watching the kneeling men with the focused attention of a predator studying prey. I didn't know, Mr. Castellano. The first man, the one who'd hit me, spoke rapidly, words tumbling over each other. I swear we didn't know she was yours. Donnelly just said to send a message. Make some noise in your territory. Rough up a few people. Nothing serious. Nothing serious. Vincent's voice was soft, terrifyingly soft. You put your hands on someone under my protection and call it nothing serious. It was just supposed to be a warning. Show we could reach into your streets whenever we wanted. Show I'd gone soft. Vincent stood slowly, each movement precise and controlled. That taking the north end made me weak, spread too thin. Something like that, yeah. Vincent crossed to stand directly in front of the kneeling man. Tell me something. When you saw her uniform, when you realized she worked in my home, what did you think would happen? I thought, the man stammered. Donnelly said you'd back down, that you were getting soft. Donnelly was wrong. Vincent crouched, bringing himself eye level. Do you know what she does here? She cleans. She arranges flowers. She's 28 years old, working double shifts to pay off her dead mother's medical bills. And you beat her unconscious in the rain for politics. The silence that followed was absolute. Even from my position by the door, I could feel the weight of it. Then Vincent asked the question, and my breath caught. Who did this to you? His voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried more menace than any scream. I did. The man's voice broke. I hit her. Tommy held her, but I did it. I'm sorry, Mr. Castellano. I'm so sorry. You're sorry because you got caught. Because you're kneeling here instead of sleeping in whatever hole you crawled out of. Vincent turned his back, walked to his desk. You're sorry because you know what comes next. He said to Marco, take them. Make it clean. I want Donnelly to receive a message, but I don't want bodies creating problems with harbor police. Understood. Marco Yeshchev. The other men moved forward to haul the prisoners to their feet. Wait. The first man struggled. Please, Mr. Castellano. I have a family. So did she. Vincent didn't turn around. Her mother died of cancer. Her sister works in my kitchen. She has people who love her. People who depend on her. Just like you claim to have. The difference is she never put her hands on anyone. She just tried to go home after working a double shift. His voice went colder. Take them. I retreated before they could discover me. Pressed myself against the wall around the corner. Footsteps approached. Marco and his men leading the prisoners toward what I assumed was a back exit. The first man was crying now. Quiet, desperate sobs that made my stomach twist. I should have felt guilty. Should have felt something other than cold satisfaction. I didn't. Back in my room, I sat on the edge of the expensive bed, hands trembling. I just watched Vincent Castellano condemn 2 men to death. Calmly, efficiently, with less emotion than most people use ordering coffee. And I couldn't bring myself to care. They'd beaten me unconscious, left me bleeding in an alley, and now they would pay for it. I should have felt horror. Moral revolución. Instead, I felt safe. Hours passed. I watched through the window as black SUVs pulled away from the house. 3 vehicles moving in formation, carrying men with guns and zip-tied prisoners to whatever fate Vincent had ordained. The sky was lightening when a soft knock came at my door. I'd thrown on a robe over borrowed pajamas. When I opened the door, Vincent stood there holding 2 cups of coffee. He looked tired. First time I'd ever seen even a hint of weariness in his carefully controlled facade. "Did I wake you?" he asked. I couldn't sleep. He nodded, unsurprised, held out one of the cups. I took it. Our fingers brushed briefly. The coffee was perfect, cream and sugar in exactly the proportions I preferred. Of course he knew. He knew everything. "Can I come in?" I stepped back. Let him enter. He moved to the chair by the window, the same one I've been occupying for hours. I perched on the edge of the bed. What happened to them? The question emerged before I could stop it. Vincent studied me over the rim of his coffee cup. "They paid for their mistake." That's not an answer. It's the only one you need. His voice was gentle but firm. "You don't want details, Sophie. Trust me." "How do you know what I want?" "Because I've seen that look before. The one you're wearing right now. The one that says you're trying to figure out if you should feel guilty for not feeling guilty." He set his cup down. "Don't. Those men made choices. They dealt in violence. They knew the risks." I sipped my coffee. Let the warmth seep into my hands. "I should be afraid of you." "Probably. I'm not. I know." He leaned forward. "How do you feel?" "Honestly, my ribs hurt. My face hurts. Everything hurts." I touched my swollen eye gingerly. "But safer than I've felt since Tuesday night." Satisfaction flickered across his features. "Good. That's what matters." He stood, crossed the space between us. "Let me see." I tilted my face up. His fingers brushed my jaw, turning my head to catch the early morning light. His touch was careful, professional almost, but there was something else underneath it. "The swelling's gone down a little," he observed, "but you need proper follow-up care. Dr. Russo wants to see you again in 3 days." "I can't afford." "I wasn't asking about your finances." His thumb traced the edge of the bruise on my cheekbone. "This happened because of me, because you work in my house. That makes it my responsibility. That's not how responsibility works. It is in my world." He withdrew his hand. I immediately missed the warmth. "Get dressed. We're something comfortable. We're having breakfast in an hour." He moved toward the door, paused, looked back with an expression I couldn't read. "For what it's worth," he said quietly, "you're not just a maid to me. You never were." Then he was gone, leaving me alone with those words echoing in my head and coffee growing cold in my hands. Through the window, full daylight was breaking over Boston, painting everything in shades of gold and rose. Somewhere out there, 2 men who'd hurt me were facing consequences I couldn't let myself imagine. And here I sat in a mansion that should feel like a cage, but instead felt like sanctuary. Drinking coffee made exactly how I liked it by a man who commanded death with a whisper. The world had shifted overnight, and sitting there in borrowed silk pajamas, watching the sun rise over a city full of violence and beauty, I realized I'd shifted with it. I'd stopped being invisible, and there was no going back, retry,